On today's episode of the Glue Guys, Brian, I don't know what to do. This
fine.
team
You're
is
overreacting.
disappointing me.
Mike, it's just January. Who cares? These are the two. This is the angel and the devil, Mike, on every Nets fan's shoulder, the way we just did. And guess which one you are?
Welcome back to the Glue Guys. This is Mike Harris. Hello, Brian.
Ugh.
Check us out on Twitter at BKGlueGuys.
Felt it.
Netsdaily.com.
knew
The
I was
Athletic.
gonna
Get
botch.
yourself behind the paywall at theathletic.com. I guess we are part of the New York Times Podcast Network.
Oh, yeah, Mike, congrats on being a timesman. We're a couple of timesmen.
Don't know how much I can. I can't discuss it, Brian. You know, I'm too inside the deal.
For the avoidance of doubt, we will never talk to a person from the New York Times. I mean, fair to say? Is that
Unless if it's the few people from the Times who listen to our show.
unless it's the corporate overlords who tell us what to say and how to think. That's the only
Peter S. Goodman, shout out Peter
shout
S.
out.
Goodman, economics reporter based in London,
One of the
and
overlords.
Jason Zinneman. I think he's the humor critic, the comedy critic for the New York Times. Our family, our Nets family. Brian, we are Timesmen. How are you?
I'm well. I stayed up and watched that abomination of a game last night, but so I'm
God
a little,
bless
I'm a
you,
little
Brian.
Crusty. I'm a little crusty in the head, but which was a bad game, Mike. That was a bad game.
give me Brian's game take.
was a-
Cue the
It
sounder.
was a frustrating take, and whoa, that was a really frustrating game for a lot of reasons. Like the whole narrative arc of the game sucked from beginning to end. I don't know if you caught it. You probably had like 5 kids bouncing on your lap, so you couldn't.
I'm gonna straight up admit, because we're a
Yeah.
podcast where we full honesty.
Honesty.
I was watching the national championship, the football national championship game.
Yeah.
It was a compelling game. I know I could also be watching the Nets. I just wanted to give I apologize to our audience. I've read all about it. Brian's gonna clue me in right now.
actually funny.
I've
I
seen the
didn't even-
Nasir Little play, which is
Do you think
which is
it's-
more violent than anything that happened in the football
Do you
game.
think it's insane that I just didn't know that football game was happening? People were talking about it. I was watching the Nets game stream, and people were like, "Oh, like Georgia is doing something." I think it was Georgia, right? Is that? I have so punted on all the other sports basically, but especially college, anything.
Do you know that? So the Manning brothers, Peyton and Eli, they have a Manning cast of Monday Night Football, and it became all the rage this year because it was really good and they had great guests. So now the alternative stream is like the big buzzword in broadcasting.
Okay.
I would love a Brian Egan alternative stream of football where you're
Wow.
watching the Nets, and it's just people on the Discord saying, "Hey, Georgia scored." You're like, okay. Nick Claxton went to Georgia.
Yeah. Georgia is a state that I've heard of, been to.
That I've been to?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
So
has
I
a
didn't.
fraught history.
I don't care about that. So, which is fun. You know, it's interesting. It's funny when I get to really feel like a normie who doesn't care about sports at all. In those moments.
How does
which
that
was
feel?
nice. It feels good. You just go right through. You just go trucking on right through life. You know, it doesn't really. You just truly don't know. Yeah.
I'm fantastic. Like the pandemic's been awful, but there was that time when like there were no sports, and I was kind of like, hey,
Yeah.
a lot of time in the day,
A lot of time.
a lot of time
Hours.
could
Yeah.
devote to literature
Yeah,
and philosophy.
I picked up my Melville, Moby Dick. I didn't. That didn't happen. But
No, that didn't happen.
But anyways, I did stay up and watch that awful game. It sucked from beginning to end. It sucked because basically what they did was Tony Brothers and his ragtag crew of referees, and I'm not going to do the whole thing, but they basically front-loaded all of the fouls in the game in the first quarter, right? So just completely sucked the air out of the room. We're shooting team free throws on off-ball fouls starting at the 7-minute and 50-second mark of the first quarter, Mike. This is what we're doing on.
That should be outlawed in
At
the NBA.
10:30, 10:40, we're still watching the first quarter drag out.
Brutal.
And then we get to the second half, in which it's just total anarchy, complete lawlessness. And so they're like, we already met our quota for fouls. Now there's no fouls. It's a no foul game. And anyways, like somebody put a mandible claw on Kessler Edwards trying to get to the rim. He just had a bloody mouth. They didn't stop the game. Nobody cares. He was just getting hammerjacked in the mouth. And then, Nasir Little, basically, the new rule is you're allowed to dive at people's ankles. So he was working that meta.
What a wild play that was.
Yeah.
So, of course, everyone has seen it now. If you watch the game or you watch it on replay, a ball is going out of bounds. It's pretty clearly just going to go out of bounds. Kyrie's basically
trotting
like a
and watching it go out. Yeah.
Yeah, just innocently watching go out. Nasir Little of the Portland Trail Blazers just swoops in like he's a porpoise.
Yeah.
Dives in and
twists Kyrie's, oft injured ankle.
how
yeah.
freaking Netsian would it have been that Kyrie's second game back he gets injured if he would have been out for the season? And again, like, got it.
No foul there. No foul called on that Nasir Little play. And Kyrie goes and is pleading his case to these guys, and they look at him like he's got a lobster on his head.
You look at him like he's unvaccinated,
yeah,
man.
Exactly. Like he is spraying disease all over them. Just kidding. So anyways, that was all happening. I think any of the current like panic button hitting that I know people tend to want to do.
I have a panic button sounder. One sec.
Oh, well,
panic button.
That is the world's panic button, is the car horn, really. Like, I'm freaking out.
This soundboard is really like the confluence of podcasting and dad jokes. Like, this is where I feel most comfortable.
Do you know
an audio-based
that
joke,
I've become really anti-car horn since starting this podcast, Mike? And I think, like, you have to have a podcast in order to realize just how much people honk. It's too much. We're honking too much. Nobody's getting fined.
Do you think when like teenagers are going through sort of like they're learning how to drive that they must have a podcast to appreciate the car horn?
because it'll mess up your audio. Anyways, what were we talking about? Oh, the panic button.
Panic button. I'm
not ready to hit that yet. I do think that that we can talk a little. Maybe we'll get to it in some. I don't know if there's emails or whatever, but I think there is this current situation of Kyrie playing the real games, which are away games, and not playing the fake games, the experiment games, which are home games, is a bad idea. I think that's going to be...
Tell me why.
I think that's going
to... Well, explain that to the audience, because some people don't understand why you call the home games experiments.
So this has become like a meme in the Discord a little bit to a certain extent. Not really. I'm kind of I'm forcing the meme upon the community, the Glue Nation. But that, like, basically, like, we start David Duke Jr. at home games as an experiment. Like, Nash experiments with the rotation in the home games when Kyrie's not available because, how else do you spin this situation from a coaching perspective that you just don't have, that one of your three best players is voluntarily missing already 75% of the season, but like now going, or dedicated to miss 75% of the season, including all these home games coming up. The way you spin it is like, well, this is a good opportunity to try things out, but like try like that as a market for like, hey, come to the Nets, come to the Barclays Center, a place that has a reputation for not being a really strong home court advantage, and watch Steve Nash tool around with his rotation because we don't have our full team and won't. And we're on paper not having a real team throughout the entirety of the season, as of yet. So maybe, who knows what, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Things could change. Who cares? But that is I think like people sort of aren't really processing the downstream psychological negative effects of that happens on a team and the, at an administrative level. It just makes those games feel less serious. They just do. Like the home losing streak for me, I feel like this is of all the panic buttons to hit. That's a thing. Again, Mike, and I'm ready to have somebody ask Steve Nash this to his grill, to his lying face, and say, Steve Nash, are we trying to get a fifth seed?
Steve Nash is a saint.
Yeah, I know.
How dare you?
But Steve Nash, honest to goodness, here's the polygraph. Are we trying to get a fifth seed? Because it feels right now like we could be trying to get a fifth seed.
Yeah, so I don't. I love a good conspiracy theory, particularly when it's tied to the standings. Yeah, I absolutely love it. There is something weird that's been happening with this team. So there are two things that have happened over the past, let's say, 3 weeks involving this team that have coincided with a downturn in play. The Nets, regardless of how you feel, whether you're panicking or you're just nonplussed about it, something has gone wrong with this team over the past few weeks. The two main things are that everyone got COVID and that Kyrie Irving returned. So I don't know if I was trying to get like clicks, trying to be clickbait Mike.
Do it. Let's get
I
clicks.
would
Can we
really-
finally get some clicks, Mike? Be a clickbaiter for once.
We refuse. You know, there was a report that came out from Bloomberg about how like there's no new podcast hits. That basically, you know, new shows. There's no like new Joe Rogan show, like a show that is a talky show that becomes a massive hit. Smartless is the best thing that has happened. Smartless is Jason Bateman and Will Arnett and Sean Hayes. That's like the best thing, and that's not even a top 30 show. Basically, if you've been around for a while, you got that beachfront property.
Right.
You and I got that beachfront property, but we're saying
we're in Virginia Beach though.
yeah.
No, that's
It's
a nice
like the
beach.
Alabama beaches.
What's the Floribama shore? Is that the
Yeah. I heard Alabama has some nice beaches though.
Those are gonna be nice, and the party scene's great.
Beautiful.
Love
party
those
scene.
wild
We
parties.
should do a live show in
I love in
Alabama
Floribama.
Gulf Coast.
Yeah, I like scooters.
We could be with the AOC maskless dancing in
I
the.
love that idea.
So two things happened: Kyrie and COVID. If I wanted to, I could say the locker room has been disrupted by Kyrie's returning. I really don't believe that. Kevin Durant and James Harden are ecstatic that Kyrie's playing basketball again. I don't know if everyone else is, but he's not really taking away from people that are like impactful. Not taking away minutes from people that have like a great impact. Like I guess he kind of takes away a little Patty Mills. Patty Mills seems like just a saint of a human being. And is only about winning and doesn't really seem to be too selfish and doesn't really care if like 3 more minutes are less played by him during a game. I don't know. Can we say that COVID has had an impact on this team and why they haven't been that good? Is that like
let's lean into this clickbait.
possible?
The reason for the losing is because of the chaos and discord. Shout out to the Discord that Kyrie has brought upon us. Okay, we lost 3 games at home, 4 games or whatever in a row. The moment he started practicing with the team, Mike, and it was announced that they're not playing home games.
Sean Marks has forever altered the chemistry of this team.
Yes.
He should be fired.
Yes.
Joe Tsai should sell the team.
Now you're doing it.
Kenny Atkins should be brought back.
Yes.
And they should trade Kyrie Irving
For D'Angelo Russell.
That's
That's the clickbait, Mike. You did it. Finally. How did it feel?
It felt great. I mean, what I really think is it's like it's death by 1,000 cuts with this team. Okay? It's Joe Harris still not back. The second that Patty Mills stops hitting shots, it's not that it becomes a negative force on the team on the floor because you still want to have Patty Mills. But
I like how you phrase that. It's not that it becomes a negative. Go on.
it's not that he's a negative.
Yeah.
It's just that by the factor of the way he plays is that he's so much of like, I'm going to keep taking my shot even if I'm not making them. He'll keep taking them. And it's actually won them games this season where he's had a bad shooting night, but he hits a big shot at the end. So I'm not even saying it's a wrong thing to do, but when he takes 7 shots and hits one of them, and then the rest of the team doesn't step up in his stead, LaMarcus Aldridge, this is LaMarcus Aldridge since December, okay? Since the beginning of December. So, but going into December, LaMarcus Aldridge was like, basically
Superstar.
comeback player of the year, which doesn't exist in the NBA. But as I embarrassingly stated, it did. But here's what he's done, okay? He's played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games, basically over a month and a half. He's had as many as inactives as he had games he has played. During those games, he just really hasn't been the same guy. Like he's getting like double digit, he's getting like 13, 10, 12 points, but he's not having those nights where he's like this dominant offensive force, a dominant rebounding force. He's been more flow of the game.
If you have the numbers open, what are his minutes trending down? I mean, it feels like when he does play, the minutes have trended down. That's a feeling I have. Yeah.
He had 5 games inactive, which I think was injury plus COVID. And then he came back against Philly. He didn't play Christmas. He didn't play against the Clippers. He comes back playing at Philly, 27 minutes. Then he plays against the Clippers in a disgusting Clippers game, which I don't want to discuss. 20 minutes in that game. Takes a night off against Memphis, 16 against Indiana, then 9 minutes against Milwaukee, and has been inactive. So, like, just look at the factors. Joe Harris not playing. Patty Mills has cooled off. LaMarcus Aldridge has decreased both in minutes and production. And yes, James Harden's played a little bit better. Kevin Durant is still MVP. But Kevin Durant's even kind of notch down a step or two. It's just that the margin of error for this team, because Kyrie's a part-time player and there's no Joe Harris, is so thin for a really good team.
It's so weird that that's the case. I mean, when I really actually now trying to like, I'm bringing back the panic button talking points, but like,
Okay.
with this team, we should be absolutely dumping on people. We should be completely dumping our bowels out on top of them. Like, it should be an insane, disgusting display of dumpage. And I can't even think of a time in which we've like just coasted, just dump to dump, beginning just a full 48 minutes of dumpage. Like, was there ever a game like that? Like, it feels like even if we do start to like pull away, we'll end up in some kind of scrappy dogfight, to avoid overtime, like the stupid Spurs game. Like,
yeah, I mean, I do think across the NBA, if we won't be so myopic, I don't know if myopic's, if we're not so singularly focused on the Nets, across the NBA, there's many fewer blowouts, like in general, this season than years past. I don't really know why that is. I guess
it's because the mid-range is back. That's why.
The mid-range is back. Yeah. But like in general, there's just like, there are some dominant teams, but really there's just like, we're not seeing these like smackdowns like we used to. I don't know. There has been maybe one or two games all year where it felt like it was easy. And I can't even list them off the top of my head. Like there was that Celtics, I'm looking at it now, Celtics November 24th. I'm sure that was at the day before Thanksgiving. That was a 19-point win.
Yeah.
Great. But that's like, to go down that, it's like, I also want to say this.
Yeah, please.
Is this a schedule thing? Because the Nets have lost to the 76ers, the Grizzlies, who are really good, the Bucks, who are really good. And those are okay losses. They're not terrible. But then they lost to the Clippers team that stunk and the Trailblazers that stunk. So it's just there's just a lot of ugly data within the mix.
Mike, do you want to take a break and then take some mail and then do some news around the league?
Let's take a break. We'll take some mail. We'll do news around the league.
I love that.
And welcome back, Brian. Let's dive into the mailbag.
Do you want me to do it? The thing?
Do it. Do the thing that everybody wants you to do.
Here's the thing. It's first up, cheer boy, Jeremy Goldstein. Goldstein. Thank you, Jeremy. Hi, guys. My name is Jeremy, and I'm commiserating this season, too. He wants to commiserate, Mike. I miss Jeff Green, but I understand why we had to use the MLE on Patty Mills. But God, seeing Otto Porter Jr. and Monte, how do I pronounce this? I know when you say it, I'm going to remember. Bielitsa. When you actually write it, it's like, whoa, I can't believe that it's pronounced that way. Bielitsa. Both on minimums for the Warriors. While we have Paul Millsap also on a minimum. Not getting playing time really hurts. Remember, the Nets were in on Porter. Any thoughts on the Nets solution for a badly needed cheap 3-and-D wing? Our rotation is a mess right now. Good grief, keep up the hustle. Bielitsa. Well, Mike, is that, first of all, two things. Is our greatest need a 3-and-D wing?
Yes.
And two, is there one out there on the cheap?
The Nets' greatest need is to get Kyrie Irving vaccinated.
Yeah.
Or to convince New York City. I guess there was a report. I know Netsdaily tweeted out, someone was reporting the Nets are working furiously behind the scenes to get New York City to change their vaccine policy just for Kyrie Irving, which I appreciate, I guess. I don't know. I mean, that's a complicated issue. There's been some buzz. Bobby Marks, old assistant GM for the New Jersey Nets, and I think he was in Brooklyn. He was in Brooklyn. He had his trade season primer that came out on ESPN.
Okay.
Always a must read if you have that subscription. He floated Dorian Finney-Smith from the Dallas Mavericks as a possible, like, the Nets flip a 2028 first round pick for Dorian Finney-Smith. Finney-Smith is a high level defender. He's always been like a nice role player on the team. I think he's on an expiring deal. But the other key data point is that if the Nets add like anyone using the Dinwiddie trade exception, it adds like $30 million in tax, which is a lot. The Nets do need a cheap three. They need another decent body behind, because like Joe Harris, while not technically a D, he's the 3 wing, and they just need like another option to go to the bench. Even though their bench feels crowded sometimes, it's a lot of like big old dudes, Day'Ron Sharpe, and then a lot of smaller guards. There's just not in between. Besides Kessler Edwards,
who's getting some play time. He played quite a bit.
Kettle.
He's interesting. He's a nervous Nelly, Mike. There is a underlying nervousness there, and he's very anxiety ridden about bringing the ball up the floor. That is like. Oh my god! And he's a baby. He's a child. No, I like Kessler Edwards a lot, and I think that there's a lot there. But he's just got those like that jittery, I'm imposter syndrome kind of thing, kind of vibe. So far,
it's just like too early for us to be banking on Kessler Edwards as being like the backup 3-and-D guy. And Jeremy had this point about missing Jeff Green. I got nostalgic. Jeff Green was on the Woj Pod, a podcast I don't listen to, but I still subscribe to just because I want to see who's on it. And seeing Jeff Green, I'm like, because like this year's Jeff Green is not what he was last year. Last year he was better, but that version of Jeff Green is the perfect player for this team.
Yeah.
Now I know there's a lot of people that want Jeremy Grant on the Nets. Jeremy Grant has been a name that's been floated out there on the trade market. It seems like the Pistons don't want to pay him another contract after they already paid him now. He is not really a 3. But he's a very passable D, very switchable, and a pretty good creator of his own shot when he needs to. He knows Kevin Durant. They both grew up in the DC area, friends, blah, 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 blah. Okay. The thing about any Jeremy Grant trade is that I'm almost 100% sure, without even diving into the trade machine madness, the Nets would have to trade Joe Harris. Yeah. Because of salary matching to get a $20 million player like Jeremy Grant.
I just don't think that that's the same. We're talking about like the same thing with Jeremy Grant. Like that's just a totally different sort of player. He's a somewhat ascendant potential star player. Maybe if you squint, maybe used to be, maybe a year or two ago.
He was a good role player on a really good team, and then has transitioned to like the star of a really bad team. Like he has that flexibility. That's great.
It's sort of Karis LeVert. There was a Karis LeVert sort of, need
very Levertian.
Yeah, need for 20 points. Somebody's going to get that 20 points per game, and it happened to be Jeremy. But I don't see him as like fitting neatly into a utility kind of role on a team like this.
The Nets, I do think the Nets need to do something. But let me ask you this, Brian. Okay. Mailbag question from Mike Smeltz to Brian Egan.
Okay, we'll send it through the email.
Can you do your boy Mike Smeltz?
Next up, no, dude, Mike. It's a fun idea.
Now that I played the drop, I can't.
It's Michael Smith. You got to play it all the way through.
Yeah,
it's Michael Smith.
That was sad. Oh, sorry. Sorry to make you do that, to put you through that.
Terrible.
Joe Harris has not played in 5 weeks or whatever it is. Over those 5 weeks, his value to the Nets has increased exponentially, I feel like. Because it's obvious to me that as great as Patty Mills has been at times, this team, more than anything else, this team actually just needs another shooter out on the floor in the James Harden lineups, along with Kevin Durant, to hit open shots. The opposing team's defenses are going to have to work a lot harder when Joe Harris is out there on the floor than James Johnson. Okay?
Yeah.
Is Joe Harris untradeable? Basically. I say basically, not, of course, if you traded him for, I don't know, name any player of like a really high esteem, you would trade Joe Harris. But for the most part, is Joe Harris untradeable?
I think it's a bad idea. If the goal is to get shooting back in a trade, you're going to be sending out the better asset. Like, you're just going to be. So I don't really understand. Like, if we're like, we need more space. Okay, well, you're not going to get much better than that. Whatever we can like gripe about his defense and that he has this meme about sucking in the playoffs or whatever, somewhat fair. We'll see. But I think in general, like, you're going to be giving up the more high value asset in a Joe Harris trade, unless, as you say, it's for like something stupid, like Shaquille O'Neal comes back in the trade, Mike.
Like Terminator T2, Shaquille O'Neal like comes out of the time machine naked.
Whoa,
on the
naked Shaq.
Well,
that is intimidating.
Imagine Shaq as the shot of Arnold in T1.
Yeah.
Just naked outside the the
I'm imagining it. It's great.
Also, I do want to start a theme bar. It's Terminator bar,
Ooh,
and everyone has
to be naked,
and then you have to kill a whole
in a
bunch of
kneeling position.
Wouldn't that be a dope entrance? I posed the question because I do believe Joe Harris, for his trade value in the NBA and what he brings to the Nets, I think he's untradeable in that scenario. Because you're never going to get someone really, really good for Joe Harris. Like the tier I'm thinking about, like I guess you could potentially get a Miles Turner type. Like Miles Turner's the same salary. He's been the name that is like that amongst the Nets nation, Miles Turner's brought up often. Miles Turner would be great for the Nets, but I still think Joe Harris is more important for what he brings, because no matter what he's doing, when he's out on the floor, you have to respect his 3-point shot. He's not calm and steady in clutch moments, but in general, like he doesn't bring any extra like, hey, I need the ball moments. He's just simply there to hit threes and to make plays. That's what he wants to do.
That's all he wants to do.
So I find him extremely valuable. And I think when he comes back, like a lot of our griping of like David Duke Jr. is not just not now. It's just not an NBA starter. It's like a nice find.
And we didn't talk about this, but like this is another like Nashism that is insane to me. This either or approach to like, you're either a starter on an NBA team or you're out of the GD league, boss. You got 10 days to figure it out. Sink or swim, David. It's crazy. It's a crazy. Why is he getting starter minutes? Why is he playing so much? Like it's such a that's not an advantageous position to put David Duke in.
Why don't you dive into the mailbag? We got a new email from Sorrow. I mean, it's pretty long, so try not to read all of it, but give the Sorrow the proper intro.
Well, which part do you like? I mean, do you want to
Could
read
Nash be part of the problem?
I'll do the intro, but you read the email, okay? Because I have
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next up, cheer boy. That's Sorrow Kutri. There's some. I rolled my R's a little bit, but I didn't like how it sounded ultimately. Mike, read it.
Hey guys, my question, can Nash be part of the problem? I'm puzzled by Nash's rotations. I have been for 2 years. They're often baffling. I get that COVID has impacted the last 2 seasons, but he always feels like he is surprised by disruptions and acting like he's coaching from a bigger deficit than anyone else in the league. He's been unable or unwilling to settle on any base rotation for 2 effing years for more than 2 or 3 games at a time. He is not helping. So he has some really good examples of times when he thinks that Nash kind of like screwed up. We've talked about this before, Brian. Is Nash part of the problem with the unevenness of this team? So I've been a staunch defender of Steve Nash. I think there's no coach in the NBA who could have handled the emotional minefield that the Nets presented with Kyrie's being unvaccinated, bringing in James Harden, trading out Jared Allen and Karis LeVert, saying goodbye to Spencer Dinwiddie, trying to figure out like Kevin Durant's rehab as he's coming back to the floor, and now he's back to an MVP. Like I think Nash has done all of that. He also benched DeAndre Jordan, something that got Kenny Atkinson fired. But even I, a defender of Nash, I mean, like his rotations are, as you pointedly laid out, David Duke goes from not playing to starting, and I'm sure he's going to be banished to the bench again. Like there's no middle ground.
Yeah,
it's very much like all or nothing.
Well,
Stephen James Nash.
Let me. I'm going to workshop a take live here with you.
Workshop it.
So I'm kind of thinking about like there's maybe a spectrum between like strict and like laxness, right? Like, and you can fall in there, but like at some level you have to have some kind of structure. And in there, there's two versions of it. There's like one that's like a very strict rotation, right? I have these players that I know can do these things at this time, and they fit together in this puzzle. And that's what they do. And we roll that out every time, no matter what, doesn't care. Like, that's the plan. And then there's another one where there's a strict system. And it's like, I have all these players, I brought them in to adapt to this way of playing, and they all plug and play into that system. He's got neither of those two things. He's playing just this complete, like, he is off the reservation into I don't know where, but like the no system, because like we don't have a good offense. Like we have a weird, like it just doesn't pass the eye test. Like there's just like a couple.
That's true.
Like what we were talking about last week, I still really agree with, and I would even expand it to the whole offense. Like we were talking about it as Harden's offense, which kind of is our offense, of just like button mashing in like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or something. We kind of do that as a team. We have a few things that we spam over and over again. And that ain't a system though. That's a couple of moves. So
that ain't a system, or is it an anus system?
It is both an anus system, and it is not a system. Nice, sorry, good, Mike. But anyways, so like I'm not married to either one. Like I've seen the strict rotation version of it, do well. There's obviously a lot of evidence to suggest that the strict system version of it does well. This, like, it doesn't matter. None of this matters. And, like, we can just have star players play 45 minutes and eke out, super hard-won wins against bad teams. That doesn't feel like a whole lot of mastery of the craft is going on there. Like, that just doesn't... I'm not getting a Master Chef feeling from this kitchen.
To me, it links back to, like, I'm never going to believe anyone's an innovator ever again until like they do it over 5 years of basketball. Because I remember one of the most exciting things about Nash was thinking that, hey, this basketball genius is going to be coaching Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and at the time Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, and like Spencer Dinwiddie, like all of this talent. And then he's going to take elements of the Warrior system, take elements of the Sun system, mix them together in this beautiful cocktail, and we're going to get this really unique team with high level talent. And he comes here. And like the offense was exciting last year. It was definitely better last year in terms of it was way more devastating. But this year, I don't even know where the Nets are ranked offensively in the NBA.
Middle of the pack.
But so much of it's just been based around like, hey, Kevin Durant, you're the greatest player in the world. Please score for us, which is fine. Like that is an offense. James Harden, you're the greatest orchestrator of offense in the NBA. Please orchestrate. And he hasn't been Boston Pops level. He's been more of like, the Tennessee Tabernacle Choir. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know what you're saying. I don't know what that
means. and so it gets back to this point of like, it's Harden Durant, and then we hope Patty Mills hits a shot, and we hope LaMarcus Aldridge is hitting mid-range jumpers. There's really nothing else to that. There's been so many pieces that have been missing that I don't fully blame Steve Nash. Like, you and I know that the Nick Claxton pick and roll, if Nick Claxton has been fully healthy all year, like that's a thing that would be optimized by now, or mostly optimized. If Joe Harris was healthy all year, Joe Harris is so integral to this team now. I truly, he's like the MVP in my mind, because like he really does matter. Like him taking those 6 threes a game and hitting half of them are pretty impactful on the game. I go back to the innovator thing. I don't think like Nash is not here, frankly, because he has this like great offense, great system. He's here to sort of manage, to be just a manager of personalities.
Yeah.
And when he doesn't have the talent that he has, if he has Joe Harris and Nick Claxton fully healthy and Patty, all that stuff, he's less impressive as a coach.
Yeah. The problem with this is that like, comparing to last season, there's a couple of narratives that like we're picking and choosing from that are like selectively beneficial, maybe is my concern. I'm starting to like just be like, okay, am I really overvaluing Steve Nash? Because like last season, the whole meme was that our star players only played eight games together, right? But we had a record level offensive efficiency. This season, obviously, we've only had one game in which all 3 players have played together. I don't know what the offensive efficiency was there. Obviously, it's not a big enough data set. But like I think last time I looked, like 12th in offensive efficiency. Like we had a literally historic offensive team last year, and now we have the 12th best offense. Kyrie is back now, so hopefully that changes. And obviously, like you're saying, the personnel stuff bring Joe Harris back. but I am open to the idea that all of a sudden that completely changes and we're like operating at a high level. I am also kind of concerned that whatever magic juju Mike D'Antoni sprinkles on offenses is sorely missing here. Can't we just go back to that? I mean, sure, he was in there. We got the emails. Hopefully we could just bring that right back. But I don't know. In lieu of that, like I'm just worried that we're like being like, yeah, like, but the two story arcs from this season and last season just like aren't matching up, and we have to kind of like got to take a hard look at this. Again, like Kyrie Irving just played a second game, and it was a not great experience without Harden, especially. So, murder no. And also, Harden's gone back to sucking too, which is not great.
Yeah, but let's do the reality check thing. Like the Nets are second in the East, but they're second. They're 2 games over the 76ers in terms of wins. Actually, the Nets have 25 wins. The Cavs have 23 wins. The Cavs are the 6th seed right now. So they're second in the East, but there's like not incredibly much separating all those teams.
I haven't checked the spread for this Nets Bulls game tomorrow night, but I'm not. If the Nets are favored, I'm not picking them to cover the spread. I'll tell you that right now.
There's no way that they can be favored. I'll look it up. But actually, the Bulls play tonight, which is the one thing that could help the Nets a little bit. There's a back-to-back or something.
Anyways, we're trending negative. Let's get another email in here.
Yeah, I don't want to be too down. I do think Nash is doing a good job. I think he's the right coach for this team. I just think I don't think we fully understand how. It's an excuse. The team has had injuries. Every team has had injuries, yes. But this team in particular is built so top-heavy. The trade for Harden and having 3 max contract guys on your roster, it leaves you, if you're an injury, if you're one of those guys gets hurt, really hurts your team. That's all. Or he doesn't get vaccinated. That's sort of like, he didn't get vaccinated.
Next up, Sure boy.
Sorry.
That's Elijah S.
Good for you for not.
I know, doxing. I keep doing that. This is also trending a little negative, but we'll blow right past it to the meaty part of this. So he says, "Hey guys, I feel like at the end of these close games against mediocre / bad teams, KD is kind of gassed. He's obviously not going to admit it, but defensively he gets a little lazy, and at times his shooting falters down the stretch. In the fourth quarter, occasionally see the Spurs game. Do you think we should be managing his minutes differently? Obviously, we need him to play a lot so we can win, but maybe play him in shorter bursts and have him shoot the ball more in those stints. I don't know what Nash is doing right now is sustainable. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts." So minutes, Mike, minutes smelts. Here's the situation, Mike, that we can't have. We can't have KD playing a lot and losing in ugly losses that don't move the needle towards like team cohesiveness. That can't possibly be. That's a bad resource to be expending to get a deficit out of. So what do you do? What do you do, Mike? Talk to me. Pop some cola, get a pop, and talk to me.
I know I bring up Joe Harris a lot. Joe Harris is going to help Kevin Durant.
Wow, there it is. You're just all in on Joe Harris.
Here's how it's going to happen.
Moving all your chips in. Wow, okay.
What Nash has had to do this year, which I don't like, is that he's had to keep Harden and Durant out on the floor against other teams' bench units much more than you would like. That's where those minutes are coming from, obviously. It's like when the other team starters they all fully go out. It's not hockey. They don't all take a shift off.
It's not hockey, guys. It's basketball. It's a basketball podcast.
God damn it, Heb. That's my miracle. Miracle on Ice. God damn, when they're like yelling at Herb Brooks.
I don't know that movie well enough to remember.
Good. Yeah, that's good. So Durant and Harden have had to play on the floor against bench units. The bench unit that we're missing is the James Harden-led Nick Claxton pick and roll, Patty Mills, Joe Harris shooters, and like James Johnson doing weird James Johnson things, or Bembry doing Bembry things, right? Because we don't have this optimized James Harden bench lineup that will, one, really juice the offense when it comes back. Because the best lineup you can put around Harden is shooters and a pick and roll big, right? That's exactly what he needs. That's the way he's best going to operate. The Nets can't run that lineup. There were times they were running like Harden with James Johnson, Bembry, Bruce Brown, and Nick Claxton, all non-shooters, right? So when you get Joe Harris back, you run him more with that bench lineup. I mean, he's going to play 30 minutes a game if he's healthy. That lets you then take Durant fully off and actually get him like 4 minutes of rest in the second quarter and 4 minutes of rest, in the fourth quarter, 6 minutes of rest in the fourth quarter. And that decreases those minutes and he gets back down to average. Here are the top minutes per game guys in the NBA right now. And there's going to be a common theme besides the Nets. Fred VanVleet is number 1. Durant, Harden, 2, 3. LeBron, 4. Jason Tatum, 5. Lillard, 6. Bradley Beal, 7. Everyone but the Nets, those teams are not that good. Now, the Raptors are good and ascending. The Lakers are fine now. They've righted the ship because of Malik Monk, but they've had to rely on LeBron so much. Those are all like singular superstars on teams that are like fighting for playoff spots, are just like not that great. The Nets are number 2 in the East, but they're so relying on Durant and Harden to carry them throughout the entire game. They need to get down. Like Steph Curry is averaging about 35 minutes a game. Okay, that's not that different than Durant's 37 and a half. But that is a difference. There is a tangible difference. Do you know who Steph Curry's tied with?
Who?
For minutes per game? Seth Curry.
Oh, weird.
They're averaging the same amount of minutes.
That's so weird.
Wow, weird. So I think it's a big problem. I love Kevin Durant's attitude about this, where he's like, I'd rather die on the court. If I die, I die. It's fantastic. I just think to the point of the email, it makes, if you're tired, you're less effective at the end in crunch time.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. You don't want Durant to be ultra tired at the end of a shitty Portland Trailblazers game.
I will say one of the only and maybe the best innovations that Steve Nash did was the guy doesn't play the first quarter and comes in and plays most of the rest of the game. That was a great concept. He should bring that back for Kevin Durant. We should do the non-starting line, like a whole punt on the first quarter, and then because really it's about timing this win. You just want to be up when
don't
the clock.
Dare give Steve Nash another idea for a starting lineup. He would absolutely love to start David Duke, Day'Ron Sharpe, Kessler Edwards, Cam Thomas, and Marcus Zagorowski.
Day'Ron looked good last night. He looked good. I'm seeing some maybe a little future for Day'Ron. We shall see.
That's my draft pick.
All right, Mike, get us out of here.
All right, thank you all. We were going to do news around the league. The one item I just wanted to say, just quickly, is that it seems like the Sixers, there's rumors now, Marcus Spears, Tobias Harris, they want to attach Tobias Harris with the Ben Simmons trade. Just a small indication to me that there's no Ben Simmons trade they like, so now they're going to the backup plan, which is we're going to clear the books, and that's why they would do it. Just so everyone knows, that's what's happening. Be aware.
News around the league. That was
Hey, thank you all so much for listening. It's so great to be here with you guys.
Really good. Mike,
find us on email, netspot@gmail.com. Get a part of that conversation. Discord, links in the Twitter bio. YouTube, every episode's going to be on YouTube. It's a great gift to you all. We love to show our faces. And iTunes, Apple, 5 stars. We want to have them.
It is our faces are a gift to you. Thanks for listening. All right. Shout out to the Discord. Bye, everybody. Bye.